Jockey will gallop into your heart with its strong story, beautiful cinematography, and realistic characters. Let's find out some more. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and today I'm talking about Jockey, which is coming to the Washington, D.C. area on January 21st, 2022. It is an indie sports drama, but a very different sports drama that I think most of us are used to. It follows an aging jockey who is trying to both stay at the top of his game, but also deal with all the injuries and issues that have come up over his life. It is a beautiful film, and my hot take is I really liked it. It is a wonderful, understated movie. It's imbued with this very real style and this wonderful story. It doesn't have to say too much, and it lets the characters and the cinematography kind of explain a lot of what's going on. I definitely think you should watch it. It's very different, but I really loved it. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending because the ending has some of the aspects I did really like about this movie. So if you don't want to know anything about that, you don't want to be spoiled, then turn this off now. Go watch the movie when it comes out. It might be out in your area. It's coming to DC on January 21st. So check it out then, and then come back and watch this review. So in Jockey, you have an aging jockey who's played by Clifton Collins Jr., who it seems like after a very long and storied career has finally found a championship horse that his longtime business partner, Molly Parker, acquired. So she has been kind of the boss in this operation. I think she owns the horses, and Jack has been her rider for pretty much as long as anyone in the movie can remember. Like everyone knows him as Ruth's rider. So he finally has this championship horse. It seems like they're finally going to be able to kind of get the glory that they've been striving for. But Jack's career as a jockey, his age, the injuries, and also some personal drama that is surfacing at this time kind of put all that into question. So the movie's about him trying to fulfill his dream, but also coming to terms with just his age and the wear that his body has taken. As you can imagine, there is some racing action, there is some drama, there is a whole lot of really great acting and some beautiful cinematography. So things I liked about this movie, a lot of that stuff, but specifically, I liked the visual storytelling. I really like when movies don't try to hold your hand through a lot of aspects of the story. And I feel like this is a good example of that. It tells a lot of the story just through the camera angles and the characters and the interaction. It doesn't really have to spell everything out for you. You kind of get the ideas from how the characters interact, the characters' reactions, the different camera angles will show you little bits of the story. But at the end of a race, you don't have to have someone like sit there and say, you won, because you see it on their face. You see the joy that happened. Like things like that I really enjoyed. And that kind of leads me to the second aspect I really liked about this movie, the races. I thought the races were very interesting. It is not what I would normally expect in a sports movie, especially, a sports movie about horse racing. You would expect it to be kind of high energy, like a camera watching the horses so you can see them trade places and kind of go towards the photo finish. But in this movie, it was very different, but I really loved it. The races, there's only a couple, but when they do have races, they focus primarily on Jack's face as he's riding the horse. So you get like just the camera angle of Jack's face. And during the race, some really beautiful music plays. It's almost dreamlike because you don't get the sounds of the race. You don't get the pounding of the hooves. You get this beautiful music and just this focus on Jack's face. And that tells you everything you know about the race. So if he's winning, you see him kind of like his expression and how happy he is. And then when the race is over, you see his joy and the utter joy in his face as he's pulling, as he's slowing down the horse and dealing with that. And when he's losing, there are very subtle touches that happen as well. Like there will be some mud that splashes on his face because he's not in front, like he's behind a horse, and there's some mud that splashes on, and you can see at the end, like he won't have the same expression. Like things like that, I thought that was a very interesting way to do it. And I thought it was a very beautiful way to show these races. Now, again, if you're expecting like solid sports action, this is not going to have it, but it does have a very unique way to show this. And the last thing I really loved is the story. Like this movie had what felt like a very real grounded story. Now I believe this movie is fiction. It's kind of, it's trying to tell the life of a jockey and like behind the scenes, but this character is fiction and the story is fiction. But that being said, the movie does feel amazingly realistic. Like you get descriptions of jockeys' lives and the injuries that happen and kind of the reasons that they happen, and you get the characters that feel fleshed out and developed and that they feel like they have kind of the weight of life behind them. Like you feel like Jack is a character who has years of experience and tons of injuries and is kind of dealing with his own mortality, and if he can keep doing this sport they love so much, you just get a really grounded, real feeling throughout this movie. Like it feels like this movie could be about real people. Like the story feels like it could be about real people. I think part of that is the storytelling part of it is that they used real jockeys in the film. So I imagine when you're hearing about some of the injuries and some of the things that have happened, those are probably real stories from real people that have experienced them. And so I think all of that just contributes to make an interesting story in a sport that I really wouldn't have thought much about. Like I wouldn't have ever thought I would get this kind of a look into a jockey's life. That was just a fun surprise, and the overall realistic story just makes this feel like an interesting drama to watch. Things I didn't like, honestly nothing. Like this movie just felt so fresh and refreshing and grounded that I just really loved it. I mean, there's a few things that people might not like you might not like the story's a little slow. I mean, I enjoyed it, but the story is a little slow. You might not love that there's not like a big energetic horse race and that the races are done in a different way. As you heard, I actually really liked that. I thought it was clever and interesting. And also there was one big emotional shift that I didn't really care for, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And overall, I really love this movie. So I don't think there's really anything I didn't like about it. I think this is just such a unique film that you should definitely check out. So I'm going to go into the ending because that does have some things I really liked about it and some of the aspects that make this movie feel both real and grounded and also showcase some of the cinematography. If you don't want to know anything about the ending, I would turn this off because you'll find out what happens. But if you don't care, if you want to keep going, let's keep going. So as I mentioned, Jack is having health issues. Like he's old. He's been in this for a long time. He's well respected, but being a jockey for so long is taking a toll on his body, both kind of the rough diet he has to go through because he has to cut weight before a race to make sure he's as light as possible, and also just the compounding injuries. Like they mentioned in the film, like jockeys have to have so little fat to like because they're jockeys cut so much weight that when they actually race, they have very little fat protecting them. So if you fall off your horse, like there is not much protecting your body and your bones from the impact. And so it can be a very dangerous thing. And then also you're riding a horse. So you fall off, horses can trample you, you can get kicked by a horse, things like that. So there are a lot of the jockeys describe really terrible injuries, and you see some of these injuries happen during the film. So Jack is kind of having health issues that have built up over the years. And he also has some personal issues. He finds out partway through that there's this person that's been following around that thinks he's his dad. And so Jack is a little hesitant at first, but he starts to kind of warm up to the idea of this being his son, and he can like pass on some of his knowledge and his legacy onto his son and help him rise up in the jockey ranks. His son also wants to be a jockey. He's a pretty good one. He kind of knows his stuff. He's not clearly as experienced as Jack, but he seems like he could have a career in this field. But partway through, you find out that his son actually wasn't his son, and his son was played by Moises Arias, who I love. He was in Kings of Summer. He was wonderful in Kings of Summer. He added such an interesting X factor and such a wonderful kind of humor to that film. And in this movie, it's a little more serious, but he still does a great job. Like Moises Arias is a great actor, and he kind of looks the part of a jock and he plays the part perfectly well. So after Jack figures this out, he gets drunk and confronts his son, and the kid admits that he knew he wasn't his dad, but he kind of wanted him to be. And he looked up to his dad, Jack, as this like person who was amazing with horses, and he wanted his dad to be that. So he kind of, I don't know, coerced him into kind of taking him under his wing. And there's a little bit of history between the kid's mother and Jack. So it could have been possible, but we find out it wasn't real. And the kid knew it and tried to trick Jack. So that causes a rift between the kid and Jack, as you would expect. And it's not a great time because Jack is also trying to get ready for these races. So it kind of hurts him emotionally and kind of affects him a little bit in his preparations. But as we see in the first race, Jack and this championship horse, they win the first race pretty easily, it seems. I mean, you don't see the race, but you see kind of his face, and he's always in the lead. He's very happy at the end, and him and Ruth are celebrating. They're kind of excited about this win, and they're out drinking and enjoying the win. And actually, the kid is there too. It seems like they're going to try to be friends, even if he's not his son. And so they're celebrating, and Jack collapses. So Ruth gets concerned, and Jack says it's nothing, but you can kind of tell that Ruth has some suspicions. And so Jack, in order to, I guess, quell off Ruth firing him, he quits right before, which I thought was a little weird. I mean, I think they'd known each other for a long enough time. You would think that Ruth and Jack could have worked it out. This was kind of a weird switch, but I guess Jack maybe didn't want to force her to do that, or maybe he just knew that he didn't have what it took to take this championship horse to the next level. So he quit before he could be fired. And Ruth, during this confrontation, tells Jack that now he's riding differently. He's riding scared, which is not something that he'd done before. So maybe the years of damage to his body are finally catching up, and it's being seen by more than just him. But in any event, so now Jack is out of the picture. Ruth presumably is going to go find another rider. I think we all know who she's going to get. So Jack, he's still a jockey. He doesn't want to leave the sport, so he goes up to another owner and basically offers a ride for him. And this is a good scene where you can see just how respected he is, because the other owner just basically like is over the moon. He's kind of amazed that that Jack and Ruth are no longer working together, and just instantly invites him into his, I don't know, camp, his group, and finds a horse for Jack to ride. He's that excited to have this person on his team. And so this was a really good scene to show just how respected in this field Jack is. So now we're getting ready for the next race, and Jack is suiting up, and you can see on him, like, this is, I think, the first time we get to see just the toll it's taken on his body. I think he's mentioned some injuries in the film, but this is the first time we visually see it. And his back just has like scars all over from various surgeries, from injuries that had happened. So you just see kind of the toll that this sport and this love have taken on his body. So the kid comes in before and, talks to Jack and hands him an article about him when, I think it was like laminated. Like, it feels like an article that the kid had for years. This may be the article that kind of sparked the idea. Maybe this could be his dad in him. And so they have a nice heart-to-heart moment, and Jack tells him finally the story of why he became a jockey. And you would think it'd be something romantic, but it actually ends up being he just did it to get away from his abusive dad. When he was on the horse, he could like ride fast and be away from his dad. But again, this is another one of those like interesting points where it makes this movie feel very real. Like, Jack had a bad situation. Being a jockey allowed him to kind of escape that, and so that kind of instilled in him this love of the sport and this like need to be better, just to get away from that situation. So again, it's not like that romantic thing that you would have expected, but it does feel very real. Just like everything else in this movie, it feels very, very real. So the race happens, and again, in this race, you only see Jack's face. Like, the camera's focused on Jack. There's some beautiful music, but this race is very different from the first one we saw where he won. During the race, you see some mud kick up on Jack's face, and you can tell then that he's not in first place. Like, he's behind the pack at least. And so, maybe he'll catch up. You just don't know. But as you're watching, his expression doesn't get to be the same as it was in the first race. He doesn't get that big smile. He kind of has a mixed emotion when he finishes. And so he finishes the race. You don't actually find out if he won from the race itself. You have to wait. And then when he gets down from the horse, you see Ruth and the kid kind of celebrating. And so, okay, they must have won. Jack didn't win. But what I love so much about this ending, it's a very interesting ending, but after it shows Ruth and the kid celebrating, and he doesn't even really look, because he knows it, because he just lived the race. He knows that they won, but the camera angle pans around, so you see Ruth and the kid celebrate. And then it just focuses on Jack's face as he's kind of walking away from the horse. And you see a very mixed expression on his face. Like, you see that he is both gutted by losing, but also strangely proud that, Ruth and this person that he is kind of taking under his wing again won. And so you see this mixed view on his face, and it doesn't ever say anything, but you can just tell from the expressions and the acting just how conflicted he is, and how he has this kind of like mix of grief that maybe his time as a jockey is coming to an end, but also intense pride that this new person that's kind of taken under his wing could be like up and coming and be the next him. And so it's a beautiful, interesting scene, and that's just kind of how the movie ends. You see this mixed emotion on Jack's face, and then it fades to black. And so that is Jockey. It's coming to theaters on January 21st, 2022. It is a really interesting film. It is very real and grounded, and also very beautiful. I definitely think you should check it out. So see it if you're comfortable going to theaters, and if not, wait for it to come out on VOD and digital. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And please check out my other content. I've got other movie reviews, interviews, unboxing videos, and movie recommendations. Thank you.